All right, we are live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. If you're watching this live or catching the replay, another exciting episode of the Legacy Lounge podcast. Today we're talking mental health with Dr. Kevin Thomas. For those who don't know, let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Kevin Thomas. He's an Army veteran, ordained minister, mental health advocate, affiliate of the National Alliance of Mental Health or the National Alliance on Mental Illness. That's right. That's
NAMI,
right?
that's
Yeah.
NAMI. Yeah.
Proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Currently, the clinical director for the Lantern Therapy Services and the Beacon of Enlightenment, where he works as a marriage, family, and trauma therapist. Man, that's a lot. You doing a lot.
It is, brother. It is a lot, but we make it do what it do.
Yeah. So you've been in mental health for how long now?
16 years, man.
Okay, 16 years. You published the manuscript titled Does Intergenerational Trauma Influence Growth or Fix Mindset Among
Absolutely.
Ethnic Minorities? That is powerful right there. Currently researching the influence of epigenetics regarding the effects of trauma on people of color. You're a national certified counselor, a licensed professional counselor, certified relationship specialist. We all know we need that. Certified clinical trauma professional, certified in psychological first aid. Man, you doing a lot out here, Dr. Thomas.
Man, I tell you what, listening to you saying that, I'm like, okay, we can stop now.
Hey, look,
it's a lot, man.
This is your show, man. It's how you want to run it. I'm here. I'm honored just to have this conversation with you and to learn from you as well, because just the conversations that we've had have impacted my life. The conversations I've seen you have with other people still has impacted my life, and I'm just like, man, that is amazing. Because I mean, for me, I'm all about legacy, and that's just the more you help people, the more impact you make. You don't got to be somebody who's in the world history books to make a great impact. So I appreciate you just being on here and just taking the time and doing this with me.
Man, Tino, thank you for having me, brother. Because look, I'll do anything for you, brother. Since I've met you, we become great confidants, and I appreciate the fact that you allow me to come on here just to talk, man, have conversation that you and I always have when we're not on air, and so I appreciate that. And then it gives me an opportunity to be on somebody else's podcast, because I'm always having people on my podcast. So I'm like, okay, I need to be on somebody else's podcast. So
hey, I'll come on yours too. Hey,
we already talked about that. It's in the works. It's in the works. We already talked about that. It's definitely in the works, and then we just trying to make sure we get everybody lined up. I try to get things done in a month in advance, so we're working it out right now.
Yeah, so let's start high level, and then let's go deeper. So, mental health, right? I mean, you said 16 years in the industry. Why is it even important?
Well, here's why is it not important? That's the question. Why is it not important? Why is people's mental health not important? Why isn't it the main agenda on the docket per se? Why isn't it the most prevalent thing that we can have a conversation about? That's the bigger question, because we are we live in a world where people pretty much run the world, right? And so it should be our best interest to make sure that we are all operating at our optimal level as a human being. And so our mental health affects us being able to optimize our potential. And most of the time it's neglected, and it's been neglected over the years. And so now this gives us an opportunity to set ourselves up for more success if we actually start to focus on our mental health.
Yeah, man, that's powerful. That's deep, because I know there's a lot of times like we really do just neglect the mental health because we're so focused on everything else and just constantly running. But then it's just like, do we take time to actually check in on it? So I will ask you, what are some of the steps that people can do, something easy that people can do to actually take care of their mental health. Because, you know, for me, when I sit down and I talk with people, I get into a lot of different things that have like nothing to do with finances. It's all about like what's going on with you, how your thought process, the behaviors and everything like that, that then ends up leading into a financial conversation. Because one of the things that's coming to mind is a client who's like, anything with mental health turns into retail therapy. So what's your thoughts on that?
That's hilarious when I hear retail therapy. But you know what? Here's the thing. You also said something about finances, and here's my take on it. Over the years and being in this field, it initially started out with me just really focusing on getting to know people, because I wasn't as skilled, or I didn't know as much about mental health, and it quickly matriculated up into what I'm doing now. Is more or less dealing with the whole person, and it's more of a holistic, humanistic type of approach, where we're dealing with the entire person.
Yes.
And whatever that means for a person, we want to make sure we're dealing with it. Quite naturally, most of us we deal with either the physiological effects of what's happening in the world, or the psychological effect that's impacting us in the world. At the end of the day, there are some things in between those gray areas that need to be attended to as well. So while we're focusing on the psychological piece and the physiological piece, there are some other things that are happening in our lives to say, hey, you need to pay attention to me as well. So it's more of a holistic approach that I take now, and more of a solution based as well. But I will say, when it comes to steps, though, self-care, and it's just that simple. It's self-care. It's everything that it says. Self-care is just like mental health. It's your mental health. And so self-care is taking care of self. And self-care is not going out and drinking and sitting back smoking. Those are maladaptive behaviors. We're talking about caring for the body, the mind, and the spirit. And so at the end of the day, self-care is your number one thing. Whatever you need to do to decompress from it all, whatever you need to do to detach from it all, that's what you should be doing for yourself. I always recommend the first step is take 30 minutes a day, just a day, to yourself, when you're not on your cell phones, when you're not engaged in conversation with anyone, when you're just actually just sitting with yourself. That could be, and I love to go outside. And so being in nature is a great component to be able to sit with yourself. Not to mention, if you're in the sun, you're getting some vitamin D as well. So, at the end of the day, being able to sit with yourself is the number one thing that you can do for yourself. And then when you're sitting with yourself, removing all distractions from within your proximity. At the end of the day, you must learn how to sit with yourself in peace, in solidarity. And so that's the number one self-care tip that I would say. That's the start. That's just the start. And then once you start to accomplish that, then you move into places where it gives you more control of yourself, like maybe taking walks, maybe taking a bike ride, doing art therapy, doing things that really speaks to you and moving everyone else out of the way. And that's the selfishness. That's the good selfishness that we need as people. Sometimes we're so busy doing for others, but we don't do for ourselves. So there's a level of selfishness that you must have in order to be healthy.
Yeah. So what would you say to somebody? Because usually when I'm talking to people, I've asked this question to many people many times in my life. Can you really just sit with yourself? And it's like, no, I need to have somebody else, either for I'm afraid to be alone with my own thoughts, or I need the distraction, or I need the dopamine hit, or like I just don't know what to do when I'm by myself. So what can you say to help somebody who has those challenges?
Yeah, a lot of us actually struggle with sitting with ourselves. The number one thing for us that we don't want to is just confronting the traumas,
Yeah.
confronting the past experiences that we've experienced, and that can be scary for a person. And when you're afraid, you're in fight, flight, or freeze mode. When you are afraid to confront those experiences, it's tough to even do anything sitting still. You're gonna always want to do all these things. But I also say increments. Increments are good. You don't have to sit for, if you can't sit 30 minutes, set your timer for 5 minutes. Start slowly. That's how we start with meditation. Is that most of the time people can't meditate for 30 minutes completely. You have to start to train yourself. Just like as you train yourself to say, I can't sit with myself, or I can't deal with this, I have to have me doing this. We've trained ourselves to think that that's what we have to do. In actuality, we don't. So just as good, there are good habits, there are also bad habits, and bad habits and good habits, they sometimes they collide. So at the end of the day, we've developed these bad habits over the years that stops us from being able to sit with ourselves. Now we have to create that. So it takes just as long to create that than it took to us for us to create that bad habit for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. Kind of called me out a little bit because I remember early in my meditation journey, I would fall asleep. Honestly, I would sit, meditate, and just be knocked out. I remember even taking a yoga class, and we started with meditation, knocked out, just in there snoring. but I like to tell people, it is a journey, and everything big starts small. So
Yeah,
that key thing that you said would start with like 5 minutes a day.
mm-hmm.
Man, that's powerful right there.
I think though, Tino, that we have this idea, this notion that everything must happen right away. If we have an idea, it has to happen today. If we aspire to do something, we have to do it today. It's like we have this hurry up mentality that we feel that if the idea is today, then that means it must manifest today. That's not how life works.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to learn that when we're having these ideals and these thoughts, that it takes time. And so it's the same thing when it comes to your mental health, is that if you're dealing with just sitting with yourself, it takes time. You have to start somewhere, though. It's not, if you don't start, you'll never get to the finish line. So you at least have to start.
Yeah. So Dr. Thomas, we got a question.
Okay.
Man said, hi, Dr. Kevin. It's nice to meet you. Can you explain how you assess and treat trauma-related disorders?
How you doing, man? Thank you for asking that question. So the first thing I do is we have a bunch of assessment tools that we use for treating trauma, and it's very extensive. So we ask a lot of personal history. We ask a lot of antecedent and anecdotal questions that lead to certain things that have happened to a person. We also go through particular experiences that a person has had. And so most of the time, it's more of a self-assessment than an actual assessment between the therapist and the client. And most of the time, it's a lot of information, historical information that we gather to determine a person's level of trauma. Now, here's the thing too: as we go through that, we have to be extremely careful that we're not jumping to conclusions, because there's possibilities that we see other symptoms of other diagnoses as well. And so it's really from a trained perspective, is that you have to really know what you're looking for when it comes to those traumatic events. So we want to make sure we identify those. And then, being sensitive to what a person says, don't just take it for what it is. Don't read into it too much. And a lot of times, as people, just in general, we look into, oh, this person experienced that's trauma. That doesn't necessarily mean that's trauma. And so if trauma is really defined as any disruptive experience that caused daily dysfunction for you or daily struggles for you. And so everything doesn't cause that every day for me, right? If I've experienced a car accident, that doesn't cause daily distress for me. Maybe it did at the time, but it's not a continuous. And so that's the difference when we're talking about trauma and how it relates to people. But that's how really we treat it. Is first the person has to get there, and that's the number one thing. Person has to get to therapy so we can assess that. Most of the time they are afraid and they won't come, and then we have family members that try to force them, and it makes it worse. Oh, so hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, to me, it's mirroring exactly the process that I go through with my clients on the financial end. You know, sometimes it's like, okay, well, how did you experience or handle money? Like, how did you view money growing up?
Right.
You know, what's going on now? You know, what's stopping you from getting to your financial goals? I remember I'm just seeing somebody going like, oh, I'm seeing everybody else being able to do this, do that, and do this, and I don't know what to do. So I just I'm stuck. Yeah, my head is just in the sand, and it's just like, okay, you know, $1 million ain't gonna come overnight. It's the equivalent of let's do this 5 minutes a day.
And I think, and again, it goes back to what we were saying. Everything is incremental. Is that we have to, if we're going to be successful in whatever we are doing, in order whatever we're seeking to do, is that we have to start out in increments. You cannot go and do everything that you need to do in one setting, and it takes a lot for you. Here's the thing: mentally, you have to get in the mindset to change. A lot of people think they can change just because I want to change. I want to change. No, mentally, you have to get focused to make that change. And if you're not mentally there, then you'll do it for a small period, and then you'll quit. That's why we have this period we call the honeymoon phase, is because it's good when you first do it and when you first engage it, but then the real work starts a few months down the line, where you really have to realize, hey, oh, this is different now. And so that's why you start off small. So incremental steps are always the best. But the first thing to do is just get in the office. Get into the office with a trained psychotherapist and go through your assessment process so they can allow you to give your historical lineage of what happened and what's going on and how we got to the present point.
Yeah. So one of the things that I like to do is just celebrate any baby step, any progress. You know, people see me in the gym and I'm just like lifting a bunch of weights and stuff. And I'm like, hey guys, you don't know the heaviest weight I have to lift is just me getting up out of bed.
Right. Absolutely, man.
The second one is getting to the gym and opening the door.
Yeah.
I mean, there were times where I get up to the door, I'm like, ooh.
Yeah. But you don't, but see, most people don't get that dopamine spike from just a small achievement. They want that grandiose achievement. I hit the home run rather than I got the first base.
Yeah. Yeah, them home runs are gonna come eventually, you know.
Eventually.
But it's crazy that you even mentioned the thing is, like, it's more success just getting on base. Because I remember, just honestly, a moment of vulnerability. I remember somebody had to tell me, like, hey, Tino, get on base. You are swinging so hard. Every time I come to bat has to be a home run. It's like, no, just get on base. Just get on base. Like,
I played baseball in high school. And so I used to always, what we would call in the neighborhood, I always used to try to kill it. And my baseball coach said, just relax. Just swing the bat. Don't be trying to hit it to the past the fence. He said, when you connect, the force will allow it to go further and where it needs to go. And so what we need to do is just swing the bat. Stop trying to kill it. Stop trying to hit the home run. And if you just connect, the home run happens on his own.
Oh man, you that mirrors what happened in one of my meetings this morning. It was like, man, stop trying to force these things down people, these concepts and stuff. Just connect to people. Just connect to them.
That's it.
Connect, share the information. What they're gonna do with it is what they're gonna do.
That's it, man. That's it. That's all I try to do, man.
Man, that is, I know for any other entrepreneurs out there, I know that can be like a hard pill to swallow. Is like always trying to do more. And, you know, thank God for the people in my life who just be like, Tino, relax, chill. And I'm just like, okay, cool.
Right.
Yeah, but man, that's needed. My question that I have, because you said you first got to get to the mindset of wanting to change.
Mm-hmm.
Like how does one get there? Because I know sometimes it's like you said there's the want that you have, but you haven't really got to the mindset of like, hey, I'm ready to make that change now.
Yeah. Most of the time, to be quite honest with you, most of the time there usually are a set of events that get you to the point that you want to make the change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Either you have gotten to the point where you feel like you've tried everything and there's nothing else to do. And so at this point, you go on this journey of changing how you see things, how you view things. And then there's the aspect of seeing other people that are in your age demographic, or even your race or demographic. If they are succeeding by way of viewing, then you feel that you're not keeping up with them. And so, there are a lot of factors that come with wanting to, but to be honest with you, seeking self and asking yourself, are you living up to your fullest potential, should make you want to change. And so a lot of times we don't come to those conclusions right off the bat. We come to the other things. The Ephraim mentioned, I mentioned earlier, is that it's people, or it's status, or it's where I'm supposed to be. Those things come first before I just want to be better. I know I'm not doing the best, and so we don't get to that till later. And so usually we have an incentive to want to change.
Yeah, I know. Like looking at your peers, the people in your generation, the people who are around you, and like seeing their success, and then you go like, oh, well, I'm supposed to be this. I should be this. I should be that. And I know that could either motivate somebody or just completely, like you said, fight, flight, or freeze. And I remember having a conversation recently, and I was like, the shoulds are killing you.
Yeah.
Like all the things that you should do is killing you. Like, oh, I should be doing this and shit. I'm like, man, that's killing you. Just be.
Yeah.
Like, when was the last time you tapped in to just who you are?
Here's the thing with that, Tino. The shoulds and the ifs always take over, because they're the closest thing to grab, the shoulds and the ifs. But it's just what you said, is being. How do we just be? Like, are you satisfied with you? Process where you are. And if you're not satisfied, just make the change. If you say I should have done, or if I do this, well, let's just erase those and let's just do what we're capable of doing in the now. I always tell people, be where your feet are, because if you where your feet are, you're in the now. So what can you do now to change the next minute, hour, second, whatever? Because guess what? The future is just a minute away. It's not 2 days and a week and years. It's the next minute is the future. So what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do within the next minute you have? The next 60 seconds that you have, what are you gonna do to change your future? So if we learn how to live in the now and be where our feet are, then we'll stop living in the shoulds and the ifs and if I could and all this stuff. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, because you'll see that life can be beautiful right where you are. Right where you are. It's what you're focusing on.
That's what I try to work with my couples, is they like to go back and bring a lot of baggage and conversation into the current conversation. So immediately, my first thing is I ask them, do you want to be together? And they say, well, yes. Most people are like, yeah, I want to be together. I love them. And okay. Now let's go ahead and play in the mud for a minute. Tell me everything you blaming him for. Tell me everything you're blaming her for. We've done that now. Okay, now we took 15 minutes of just playing in the mud. Okay, now what are you willing to do? What are you willing to do to change the situation? Not as a couple, but individually. Like, you have to understand, as an individual, you dictate how the couple proceeds. When I say that is, it's not a game of teammates. It's a game of individual. Because here's the thing: if you as an individual change, and I as an individual change, the entire couple changes. You see what I'm saying? And so when we realize that, is that it's not about us changing as a couple. It's first us changing as an individual, which dictates us as a couple changing.
Yeah, man, that's powerful. You know, it's like, if it's gonna be, it's up to me.
I love it. I love it. Hey, you better coin that as a slogan, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it starts with self. Because even, you know, talking about relationships, a lot of times what I do, I'm always like looking at myself and just being like, am I being self-aware? You know, sometimes I'm like, I may be too hard and too critical on myself, but I go, you know, am I being the best version of myself in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
You know, am I showing up as my best self? One, for me, then for my wife, then for the other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm always like, okay, you know what? Because I don't want to put it on anybody else and be like, you.
Mm-hmm.
When it's like, oh man, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I may be the cause of this.
Yeah, yeah. The number one thing that I've encountered over the years is a lack of understanding of self. And when I say that, is that I get individuals that come into the office that had created an image for themselves, and that significant other is actually attracted to that image. They're never actually attracted to the real you, because you never shown them the real you. You've only shown this image of who you are. And so guess what? They're attracted to that image. And once they're attracted to that image, when you try to be your authentic self, that's when things hit the fan, because I hadn't had to deal with this person before. So where did this person come from? I never knew you was this, and I never knew you like this. I never, and so because you haven't actually introduced your authentic self to that person, they're marrying the image and they expect that image to continue.
Yeah, yeah. That makes me think of the men's conference that you got coming up, because it's called Build. And the thing about that, I love the title of it, because, you know, even when my wife asked me, like, I could tell her how each little thing in my personality came, because I remember taking the time from like 18 to maybe 28, so like a decade, and just going, all right, I need to build myself. Like, you know, not just doing things just because I observe like friends and family and parental figures, just like, oh, I got that from them, just unaware. It's like, no, taking the time to be like, I'm going to take this little block, set it down, take this little block, set it down.
Yeah.
And then now I'm like, oh, okay, it got me to here. Now I'm looking and seeing the vision and seeing where I'm going. I'm like, oh, there's still even more growth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and even in putting that together, the Build conference, Build stands for Brothers United in Leadership Development. That came about when of me challenging some men to actually live what they say. You know, we had these group of men speaking and talking, and I challenged them. Okay, if you say these things, and if you say this is how okay, I'm going to challenge you now to do it. And so from that point, we started to establish, like, okay, we need to first build our young people up, because most of us older ones, we have come from broken families. And and it's not so much of we're trying to say we're going to save you, but more so is we want to teach you that when these things happen, how to handle this in the most productive and healthy way. And so and so when I coined it, build, is I wanted us to build these young men up. These young men don't have fathers, they don't have father figures, positive mentors. And so we wanted to bring everyone together under one roof and try to impart some knowledge in them that will help them to live up to their fullest potential. Because again, most of us haven't grown up without a father or father figure, and we had to figure out on our own. And when you have to figure out things on your own, most of the time you make a lot of mistakes. And so if I can stop you from making that same mistake that I've made, then that gives you more time to focus on things that you can do positively. And so that's kind of how that actually transpired. That's really what we're trying to do, man, is just build up our young men.
Yeah, man, and that's powerful, especially with that community. And then you got people to hold you accountable and guide you. For me, one of the things that my system, the way I operate is I like to have somebody who's better than me and who's further along on the journey in every aspect of my life. That way I don't have to really think about too much, whether it be like your family, your faith, your finances, your fitness, just having fun, just all of those. Just, hey, you further along in the road, it seems to be working out for you. Give me the steps, give me the keys.
And you know what? To that point, Tino, men, we think that we have to be the smartest person in the room. Let me tell you something. If I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in trouble. Because at the end of the day, just what you said, you need someone that has been, as my grandmother would say, have been down the road a piece. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know, you need somebody that has been on their way back. And so I never try, and much as people be like, man, I'm like, look, I try to get people around me that I can learn from. Yeah. If I can't learn from you, I'm trying to put in you. And that's my thing, is like, I'm particular about the circles, and I don't go in circles. I mean, I'm in small pockets, and it's people that I mess with in there, but group wise, I'm not really, outside of my fraternity, I'm not connected with groups of men because of, I want to be around men that are influencing, not just talking.
Yes.
I really truly believe that we can talk, we can have great ideas, and we can say, okay, we got a great plan for a movement. But if we're not facilitating that plan, if we're not implementing that plan, then we're just talking. And I'm not that type of person. So that's how I feel about it. You know, I like to have people around me that are super smart, super intelligent, and not always way of intellect, but creative. Yeah. I think that's a huge thing, is being able to be creative with the knowledge that you have. Just having knowledge is not good enough. You need to be creative with it.
Yeah. And this is a conversation that we were having recently, where it was just like, hey, no matter how good you think you are, you're always missing something. Like, you take one thing and another thing, you put it together, and then you create something new. I was like, all of the thoughts that I ever have, and I was telling my wife this, I was like, that's one thing. But then you come in and add just a little something. I'm like, oh, never thought of it that way. And that's what I find the beauty with every single person you come in contact with.
Yeah. And even to that point too, Tino, is that allow people to be their authentic selves, because if you're bringing them in for their talents and their gifts. Okay, well, I'm not going to tell you what to do in a sense of how to use it. I'm just going to give you the whole bowl of whatever it is, and you figure it out and you make it your own and you create, because there's nothing worse than having to work for someone and they tell you how to do every single thing. At some point, you have to be able to implement. It has to look like you. Yeah, I'm going to do this because, and then they be like, wow, that's something Dr. Thomas did, because I wanted to make it look like me. It wasn't my idea, or it wasn't in my mind, but my boss said, hey, do this. And I put my spin on it and did it the way I did it, and the way I do it. And so that's what I really want our young men to understand, even when coming to this conference, is taking all of this information and then identify yourself in it. Where do I fit? How can I use my tools to the best of my ability? How can I use the things that they have experienced and I'm experiencing? And how can I create, my authentic self in that? And so that's kind of how I like to move. I mean, my team of 4, everybody's different. A couple of them can do the same thing, but for the most part, everybody's different in their way, and they mastered their gifts. And a lot of times when it comes to social media, I don't touch social media. I let them do what they do because they're better at it, and they're working in their gift. I'm not a social media guy, so I let them work in their capacity.
Oh, we got another question in here. It says, how do you determine the appropriate length of therapy for a client?
So I will always tell people when you first come in, do not put a time limit on it, because you're not there to have an expectation of I'm gonna do this for 5 weeks and then I'm gonna be good. Here's the thing: when you come to therapy, it's not about fixing anything. I'm gonna repeat that. When you go into therapy, it's not about fixing anything. It's all about managing. So guess what? I'm going to help you learn how to manage those symptoms that you're having. Because if I give you the idea that I can fix it, you're going to be expecting me to fix it. And then if I tell you, well, the therapy session is about 12 weeks, you're going to be looking for that 12 week, and you're going to be like, okay, I'm 12 weeks and I'm still not healed, or I'm still not better. And it doesn't work like that. This is a life journey. It's like when you're trying to lose weight. It's the lifestyle thing. So therapy can be a lifestyle thing. And guess what? That's not necessarily still in my office either, because therapy doesn't start until you leave my office. What you're doing sitting in my office is I'm helping you find the tools to manage your symptoms. When you leave my office, now it's time for you to put those skills to practice. And so again, I don't give people time limits. We just work. And when we both see the changes that's necessary for them to be able to manage it, we'll start to taper down. Okay, we'll go to every 2 weeks, or we'll go to once a month. Once that happens, again, we'll do what we call check-ins. Once you're actually done, or you feel like we both, because it's a collaborative approach, once we both feel that you've achieved what's necessary to be able to manage, then we'll do check-ins. Because one of the problems is once you stop therapy, people stop going altogether, and that's not always the case. You still want to do regular maintenance and check-ins and checkups like that to just keep your mind clear, make sure you're still going in the right direction. So for me personally, I don't give time limits. I heard a lot of people say, this is a 12-week session, 8-week session. Normally, now here's the thing. Normally, Western style therapy back in the day, and even up to recent, you would have a lot of people say, okay, we do 8 and 12-week programs or sessions. That's not healthy for people. And the reason why it's not healthy for people is because if I come in with anxiety and you tell me I'm only going to be there for 8 weeks, I'm panicking already, because now I'm feeling like I got to hurry up and get what I need to get for the next 8 weeks, because then after that, no more. And so we have to be careful when we start to put time limits on therapy. Therapy is a lifestyle change, and so it helps you to manage your symptoms. I said a lot. I hope I answered the question.
Hey, that's great, because it comes back to lifestyle, where it's like I'm not just trying to hit this one goal. Like even when you talked about losing weight, it's like, okay, you hit your weight loss goal, but the goal is to be healthy. You don't just go like, I got to this and I was healthy for a moment.
Yeah. Because guess what though? It's never about the actual weight loss process. It's about the maintenance of it.
Oh man,
that's what it's about.
Oh, man. It's like I tell my team, all work works. It's either working for you or it's working on you. It's still working.
I'm telling you, you got to maintain it. That's the hardest thing about it. But that's how therapy is, man. It's that we've conditioned people to believe that they have a certain time limit on therapy, and that's not the case. And we need to really step back and reevaluate and reassess how we're actually portraying therapy, because that's a false sense of security. It's like 8 weeks and 12 weeks I'll have it where I'll be good. No. And then the minute you have this idea of fixing things, and the minute you think you have it fixed, life happens again.
Mm-hmm.
So, and life happens again, and guess what? That's going to happen again. So you never fixed it. So you got to learn how to manage it. So when it happens again, which it will, you know how to deal with it.
Yeah, man. Again, this is why I say always got to have people who are further along in the journey, and no matter what avenue they're in.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of one day I was coming out of church, and I used to walk with my head down. I used to just walk with my head down because this was like inner city New York, and I didn't want to step in all the dog poo. That's what it came down to. So I just keep my head down because I'm like, okay, well, I got to step over. And one older guy told me, he's like, well, you can see it further down the road if you pick your head up. And it just didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
And it when I go to certain cities, that's really sometimes one of the only things keeping my head up. I'm just like, oh yeah, I can see further down the road.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I can appreciate that.
Yeah, man. I again, it's just all the people that I've had in my life to just pour wisdom into me and just keep me in them boundaries where it's like, hey, this is the path. Man, I appreciate that. Truly do. Let's see here. So I know you're big on men's health. Give us something for the men.
I think the men, in my experience, personal and professional, I feel that we somewhat get a unfair shake as adults, is because we have really and truly not been taught how to live in this current body and mindset that we have. And I say that because, again, a lot of the men that I know have had some sense of abandonment issues because of father wasn't there, mother wasn't there, or have never been able to develop in their manhood because they haven't been taught. To be honest with you, my biggest question when I ask men is, who taught you how to be a man? And then the second question is, I say, how did they teach you how to be a man? And so we have to be specific in what we say a man is, and how we become a man. Is one, we must ask ourselves, have we been developed in the scheme of manhood? If we've been developed in the scheme of manhood, that means as a young child, I had a positive male figure in my life. As an adolescent, I had a positive male figure in my life. As an adult, I still have a positive male figure in my life that holds me accountable for the decisions that I make and I don't make. And so if you haven't actually had that your entire life, then guess what? There's a default in there that you haven't tapped into that identifies with some of the actions and the behaviors that you're displaying. And so when that happens, then guess what? You're ultimately affecting everyone around you. And I like to give people the analogy, because I've been in the military. I like to give people the analogy of dropping a mortar on the DMZ or something like that. Like a particular, let's say you painted a big bullseye on the ground, and that mortar, which is a bomb and a missile, that has to hit the bullseye. But here's the problem with hitting the bullseye. The bullseye just doesn't get affected. Everything around the bullseye is affected. Yeah. And depending on how big the missile and the bomb is, it tells you how much the blast radius is. And so my thing is if you as a kid have been affected in a certain way, guess what? That blast radius is going to be huge for you. And when you have that blast radius being so huge, it's hard to come back from that if you don't have the proper people in place. By people, I mean male in place to help you deal with that. Because we have a tendency, if we don't have anybody to help us deal with that, we don't know what to do with it. And when we don't know what to do with it, we carry this for the rest of our lives until we get into groups of men that know themselves, have come to identify themselves, and also been able to rectify the levels of development that they didn't have during their growth period. And so that's very important. So that's why I'm so strong when it comes to men, because up until 13 years ago, I didn't understand that concept because I still struggle with my own inadequacies when it came to manhood. And so it's levels to this thing because I didn't have a father at a certain time when I needed a father, you know. Yeah. And so, and even when I had a grandfather that was there, he really wasn't emotionally there.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So you just got to pick your poison with that.
So how do you handle it? Because I know with dealing with men, and like you said, everybody wants to be the leader, and then not taking into full account that blast radius and the collateral damage. So you have somebody going on their own path, but how do you deal with the pushback that you may receive, because it's just like, oh, that there's a lot of accountability in there. There's a lot of checks and balances. And if somebody doesn't have that, then it's just like, that may be like a personal attack to them.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that too, because it takes a great skill to be able to do exactly what you're asking. Because guess what? Most men they're already on the defense. And you know about being on defense, you're already ready to attack. So most men do that. So it comes in your approach is that, of course, I'm not coming in saying that you're not a man and you don't have this and you don't possess this, you don't possess this. Is my job is to have you to come to that determinant that you haven't had these things. So in my line of questioning, in my line and in the way I approach you, I'm going to be asking you to tell me if you are sufficient as a male, not me saying you're not. I'm going to have you to do that, because at the end of the day, I want you to see it more than I can tell you, because I can tell you that, but you won't get it. But until you see it, have you ever had a conversation with a person and they be like, man, you know what? I didn't get that until you just said that. That's how it happens. Is we're having a conversation, you and I just having a conversation, and out of something I've said, you might say, you know what? I didn't even think of it like that. That's what we do. Is how you talk to a man without emasculating him and without making him feel like he's less than. You just have man-to-man simple conversation. And in your conversation, you notice that he's saying stuff that is contrary to what you feel and you think a man is. And if you fully develop, you be like, okay, wait a minute. So where does that come from? Why do you feel that? What does that make you feel like? I mean, so now I'm digging. So I love the pushback of men, because I get to dig. And guess what? It brings perspective.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it brings us perspective. But again, it takes a skill to do that. And if you're not trained in that, then you need to have more conversation with people smarter than you to learn how to understand how you actually function.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, that's mic drop right there.
I'm just, hey man, I love dealing with men that feel like they got it all together, because I was a prideful person. I was a angry person, all of those things, and it pretty much all stemmed from my father not being there.
Yeah.
I had to do that work for me.
Yeah.
And I know you've heard me speak about this quite often. I didn't have a father, and a lot of men that came in my life dropped nuggets and taught me, man. And so I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, that communication is is a skill. It is a skill. Because, you know, especially as men, you just like, man, I told them. It's like, hey, it don't work that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what, Tino? That's funny that you said that. Because that's the whole premise of why we wanted the men's conference to be from age 8 years old and up. Because we have men saying just what you said. I told them. They didn't listen. I told them. But here's the thing, though. If you remember you know it took you more than one time telling me. You know what I mean? So you have to tell them more often. And so when you got an 8-year-old and you're pushing them and putting in them the right things, and then guess what? When they're 10 and you're still there putting and imparting into them, then they're 12. So eventually they will get it. But we prematurely give up because guess what? I've told them. My hands off now. You know, ain't nothing else to do. We have to be able to continue to confront until they're ready to change and make the world and that community a better place.
Yeah. Somebody was telling me it's like sometimes you just got to be reminded and just reminded and reminded and reminded. It's like, yeah, because again, learning comes through repetition. So
there you go.
Be like, hey, I told them, you know. Yeah. And then it's also, you know, especially with me and my organization, one of the things that we've been talking about lately is vulnerability. You know, it's like, how are you communicating things? Because people will see us as the experts and be like, look, man, we didn't just be born here and just have it all going on like this. Yeah. It's all a journey. And again, you may be further ahead in this part of your journey. And so I'm going to listen to you because that's your lane. I may be further ahead in this part of my journey, but it's like, you know, it's all those checks and balances. So it's just like, hey, how can we be vulnerable? And one of the things that man, it's just been sitting in my mind for the past few maybe months now is like everybody that you meet, everybody, you, me, anybody watching this, listening to this, you are a unique human being. Yes. There's nobody like you on this planet. You are 100% unique and an individual. Even if you're a twins, you know, you're still a unique individual. You know, there's something that we can get from everyone. Nobody on this planet has your experiences to the exact T. Man. Then on the other hand is you're 100% normal. You're 100% regular because you're a human. And it's just like, how do you balance those two thoughts? I'm unique. There's nobody like me, but also I'm still regular, just like you. And just holding those two things at the same time. So it's like, oh, I'm not going to have this inflated ego, but also I'm not going to be so humble that I'm down in the dumps. And it's just, I was like, I got to hold these two things. And then it allowed me to just connect to anybody where it's like, you are amazing. Your experiences, it's like, even though, you know, there are a lot of men who don't have fathers, my situation wasn't exactly like your situation, even though there's commonalities there.
Right.
So there's something that we could share. And then at the same time, it's normal. It's like, hey, it's okay. True. We didn't have fathers, but we could still make it through this.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. I love that. One thing I would even go a step further is that my greatest experience, Tino, and this is the truth, is two things. First of all, my greatest experience is knowing that I can do it and don't do it. When I say that is, if I'm in a group with people and a group of men, and I know I can do it, but I allow myself to let someone else do it and let them flourish and let them learn, because that's how I've always done it. Is I've always sat back and I've always been thrusted to the front. And so and so my thing is I have a pattern of just sitting back. And then guess what? Now everybody's like, okay, Dr. Thomas, what do you think? What you think? You know, so I that's my greatest experience, is just to be able to sit back and watch others thrive, but also knowing that I could do it as well. Second thing is transparency, total transparency. You made you made a comment about, you know, just being able to have just enough confidence and success and not being too high and too low. Is I often get reminded by, unfortunately, by Black men. They come into my office and they talk as if I haven't been there, you know, and they'll say, you don't know, but you know, maybe you know, and all this kind of stuff. And I'll say, okay, here's the thing. I'm an open book. I'm very transparent. I know who I am. I'm not afraid of who I am. I'm not afraid of you going out saying this and saying this about me. That I know who I am. I said, so guess what? I grew up in the housing projects, and I grew up in the South when there was not so much of uh, kindness to my race. So I have the best of both worlds, if you want to take it that way. And so, and then I proceed to tell them about my experiences. Then they say, oh, okay, I get it. And so now I'm reassuring them that I know what it's like to live life at that level, because they tend to put you up there and think that you haven't never had to endure anything, and that somehow has an effect on their relationship with you. And so sometimes there is uh, a a level of communication where there's transparency. Now, if you took it back to my graduate school professor, she would tell you that you never disclose. Don't talk about you. It's always about them. I get that, but at the same time, when you're trying to connect with people, you have to give that.
Yeah.
You have to. And so they look at you as if you're not human, if you're just sitting there writing and not divulging a little bit about yourself, because that's your connection to people. That's really how I built my reputation, is based on my relationships with people. I want to, more than anything, have a relationship with you before anything else.
Yeah, man, that is a nugget for me, because even when I look at other entrepreneurs and even people in the finance industry who are super successful, and everybody's coming to them like telling, oh, how'd you do this, how'd you do that, what was going on, and all this is amazing. The thing is, just like how I tell my clients, like, yo, I've been broke. Like I remember having no electricity in my apartment, lit a candle, opened the window so I could try to get some air in, when blew the candle out. I was like, oh, so I like when I sit down to like people with very high net worth millionaires, but I'm like, well, tell me about that period in your life where you were down. How did you get through that?
Yeah.
Because then it helps me in my journey, and then the elements of those stories can help my clients, and then it's just, we're all just one person reaching back, pulling the other along.
Absolutely, man. No, I think that's, you should learn to be authentic. We're our great resource. We're our greatest resource. Like, and everything in life is built off a relationship. If we stop chasing the bag and build a relationship first, the bag will come. Because here's the thing, Tino. Let's just be honest with it. If you and I have created a relationship, and now I come to you about financial help, then guess what? You're going to give financial help because, one, you're like, man, Dr. Thomas is a good brother, so I want to help him out. I want to, make sure. And to be quite honest, this has happened, and so if we build relationships first, and then understand that what comes with that relationship, there's a responsibility of keeping that relationship vibrant. There's a responsibility of feeding and establishing and growing that relationship. So when you need the things that you need to be successful, those things are not as out of reach as you think they are, because now I've established a relationship with this person. Now this person right here also knows how to help me get to where I need to be. It's still it's a trade-off, and it's not using. It's just like, these are my relationships.
Yeah.
Because that's what people do, right? That's what networking is, right? We're building relationships so we can help each other somewhere along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and so that's why I say, man, I'm just an open book like that, and I'm always trying to build relationship.
Yeah, man. When you said that just now, it reminded me of the song "Lean on Me." Just hey, man, because there'll be times when you need somebody to lean on.
You absolutely.
That is absolute facts. Oh man, so here's this thing. Oh man, I was waiting to do this with you, Dr. Man. Oh man, I got this deck of cards here.
Okay.
And it just pretty much has questions on them.
Okay.
And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run my thumb, over the cards.
Gotcha.
You tell me when to stop. Whatever card we stop on, that's just the question I'm going to ask you.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so let's go.
Stop.
Okay, let's see. Whew. Oh man, what is the one trait about yourself that holds you back?
The one trait about myself that holds me back, to be honest with you, I'm what we call an ambivert, meaning that I'm only an extrovert when I need to be. and so one thing that holds me back is that I really love being home. I really love I really love being either by myself or with my wife. And so that can be a hindrance sometimes because I know I need to be at places and spaces, but I would rather be at home.
Oh man, if my wife was watching this, she is going to crack up hearing you say that. Oh man.
Yeah, that's me. I mean, that is what it is, man.
I understand that 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
My wife will tell you, she'll tell you, like, when I'm out, I'm talkative, I'm engaging. When I'm home, she probably get 2 words out of me unless we're having conversation. That's just how I am, man.
Yeah. How did you learn to turn it on?
I learned to turn it on because I knew I had ideals that I wanted to really convey to people. And I would get in these spaces and I wouldn't say anything. And I'd be like, you know what? If I want to see these things happen, I'm going to have to talk. I'm going to have to share my vision. I'm going to have to this and that. And so I just one day I said, okay, I took a deep breath. And it was just like when you first learn how to swim, you like, I'm gonna jump. And then you just take the bag up and take that run and you just jump in there. Yeah. That's kind of how it was the first time. Because I was like, and if you dated, I'm dating myself a little bit, but like the girls used to double dutch and they would rock back and forth before they jump in, right? That's how I was when it came to networking and interacting. And so the first time I told myself, just go, just plunge. And I just plunged. And from that point on, that's always stuck in my head. Just go. Don't worry about it. And then too, I've learned now, I'm okay with who I am. So I'm not always going to be politically correct. I'm not going to always hit the mark, but I'm going to give it to you how I give it to you.
Yeah.
And you accept it or you don't. And so now there's no fear of it. I just do it.
Yeah, man. Man, you preach to the choir, man. Sometimes I know I'm like, oh, that didn't.
Yeah.
I could have worked on that a little bit, put a little bit more thought in before I said that. But
yeah.
It's like it's out there.
Everybody make mistakes. Everybody, you just do it, however you deal with it. So I tend not to stay there too long with those mistakes, man.
Oh man. Yeah, well, Dr. Thomas, I don't want to take up all day, but I know I could talk to you all day, man.
Man, I enjoy this, Tino, and even the conversation we have off of live, I always enjoy having those conversations with you, man. I think you're a bright brother. I think that you got great potential, and again, we tap into our resources, and that's what I always tend to do, and hopefully you and I can continue to collaborate and move forward and do some things. And you will be on my podcast very soon, and hopefully we can do it within this next month. But thank you, man. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate all that you're doing. We need it just as much as we need mental health. We need financial literacy, and I appreciate what you're doing. I truly do.
So yeah, it all comes together. It's not. It's your life. It's your life, and so like when I think about legacy, it's like the sum total of your life, the stories, the people you've impacted. Because even though you see a lot of people. Oh man, this is why mental health is important too. Because you see a lot of people just like, oh, they got money, and then they still kill themselves.
Yeah,
it's just like the money is just a tool.
It's just a tool. It's a tool. So.
Yeah, but tell the people where they can connect to you, where they can find you, how they can reach out to you.
Well, you can find me at Mentality Unchained on all platforms, all podcasting platforms as well, Spotify, Apple, we're on YouTube, we're Instagram, Facebook, all that. Mentality Unchained, also mentalityunchained.com. Also have all of our YouTube podcast videos on there as well. And more than anything, you can find me in the neighborhood. I'm the neighborhood therapist, so I'm in the neighborhood, and you can talk to anybody in the neighborhood. They can point you in my direction. Again, I make a point, and my greatest achievement is making sure that I'm in the community. So that's where you can find me.
I like this this one thing you said, is that everyone has the ability to change their circumstances only if they focus on what they can change.
I say that after all of my podcasts because I truly believe that we all do have that ability, because so many times we focus on everyone else instead of ourselves. So that is my mantra, and I live by that. And I hope that everyone will soon catch heed to what that means to them. So I appreciate that. That means you've been paying attention too.
Man, I learn a lot from everybody. I learn a lot from it, because what that says to me is it goes back to every day you get a chance and a choice.
Yeah.
So you're either going to make a change or you're going to live with it. So
that's it.
What are you going to do?
Right.
Again, like how I say, life happens in moments. Legacy happens in moments. Your legacy is on the line today.
Man, you better believe it. You better believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, man. So again, man, thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. Well, everybody, that's Dr. Thomas. He told you one more time how they can connect to you.
Mentality Unchained on all platforms.
Mentality Unchained on all platforms. Please reach out. Please take care of your mental health. Take care of your health in general. Again, think about the impact in your life and the impact in the lives that you're making of other people. Let's just all go out there and be great. And with that being said, bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye.
All right.